All right, so you wanted to really get into the origins of leadership. And, well, we're going way back for this one, like biblical times, back to the book of Samuel, which is all about the very first king of Israel, a guy named Saul.
It's really interesting how this text sets up the whole idea of leadership because
Hmm.
we don't meet Saul as some kind of powerful warrior or someone who's like a charismatic speaker. Instead, we find him humbly out searching for his father's donkeys.
Not really the kind of resume you'd expect, right? It's almost as if they wanted to surprise us.
Exactly. It's like this unexpected beginning that really highlights Saul's humility and his lack of ambition. And the text really seems to kind of emphasize that. And it's also important to remember that he's chosen by God. It's not as if he's scheming or anything like that.
So that's where the whole prophet Samuel thing comes in. Can you imagine? You're Saul. You're just out trying to find these lost donkeys, and all of a sudden you run into this incredibly important figure.
Yeah, Samuel's like the wisest guy around, right?
Totally. And then out of nowhere, he anoints you with oil, marking you for something big. I think I'd be hiding behind the donkeys at that point.
It's such a powerful symbol, though. Like this idea of choosing a leader based on potential instead of just going by appearances or someone's family or status. And I think this act really highlights how leadership is more of a calling. It's not just a job you go after.
And you're right. The text actually portrays Saul's fear and reluctance, not as a weakness, but as a good thing. Like it actually makes him more worthy. It's kind of refreshing, yeah. Especially these days when it seems like ambition is all that matters.
Totally. I mean, this whole unusual beginning really sets us up for something different. It's about humility and obedience, recognizing that there's something bigger than us.
But it doesn't just end there.
Yeah.
Samuel introduces Saul to the Israelites as their king, and they're not exactly thrilled.
Oh, yeah. They're skeptical for sure. The text says they wondered, is Saul also among the prophets? It's like I couldn't believe that this ordinary guy, the same one who was just looking for donkeys, could also be their leader.
What were they expecting? Someone who just looked like a king, or who would want a bunch of battles. They wanted something easier to recognize, right?
It really makes you think about what people saw as a leader back then. Was it charisma, family power? I mean, Saul's story really challenges those ideas from the very beginning.
It makes sense that they would have doubts, though, right? I mean, it's one thing to be chosen by a prophet, but it's a whole other thing to actually unite a nation. And on top of that, he's got this terrifying enemy to deal with, the Ammonites.
So we're moving from prophecy to actual action now. This is where things really get going. So tell me more about these Ammonites. What made them such a threat?
Well, they were this really powerful group, lived on the borders of Israel, and they had this reputation. They were known for being fierce warriors and for being pretty cruel to the people they conquered.
So it wasn't just talk. This
No.
wasn't some small conflict.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not at all. The text describes how they actually besieged this Israelite city, Jabesh Gilead. And it was a strategic attack. Like they wanted to demoralize everyone and take over the whole nation.
And their king at the time, Nahash, he really takes things up a notch.
Yeah, he gives the people of Jabesh Gilead this awful choice. It's really chilling.
What did he do?
He tells them that he'll let them live, but only if they let him gouge out their right eyes. Can you imagine? It was meant to completely break their spirits.
Yeah.
And make them an example to anyone else who dared to resist.
I can't even imagine the fear. It wasn't even just about surviving at that point.
No, it wasn't. It was about their dignity, their identity.
And this is where Saul really gets tested, because he hears about what's happening, and he is not happy about it,
He has a pretty strong reaction.
to say the least.
Yeah, the text says he was so angry that he cut oxen into pieces, and then he sent these messengers all over with a simple message. Join me to fight the Ammonites, or this will be you.
Wow. Talk about a powerful image.
And you know what? It worked.
Well,
The Israelites. Maybe out of fear. Maybe because they were so outraged. Or maybe because they finally believed in Saul. They came together, they marched with him to Jabesh Gilead, and they completely defeated the Ammonites.
so he went from zero to hero in no time. That must have really solidified his position.
It did. He proved that he was a brave and capable leader. But even more importantly, he showed that he could unite the tribes of Israel when they needed it most.
It's interesting how these moments of crisis, they could really reveal a true leader.
Totally. But the story doesn't end there. Being a leader isn't just about winning battles. It's about the kind of ruler you are, even after the fighting is over.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be pretty intense, right? Going from looking for donkeys
Yeah.
to actually leading your people to victory. You'd think that would be enough. But like you were saying,
Yeah.
there's more to the story.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The book of Samuel is about a lot more than just winning battles. It's really trying to figure out what kind of king Saul is going to be. And this is where Samuel comes back in, that prophet we were talking about. You know, the voice of wisdom and guidance.
So it's like he's not just there to appoint the king and that's it. He's got this bigger role.
Totally. It's like he knows how intoxicating power can be. So he uses this moment, this big victory, to remind Saul and the Israelites that true leadership isn't about what you gain from it. It's about serving others, taking responsibility, and ultimately answering to something bigger than yourself.
He's like setting down the ground rules, but not in a bossy way. More like he's trying to give them a framework to help them build a fair and just society.
And that framework is pretty amazing. He talks about justice, humility, and being obedient to a higher moral authority. He even tells Saul that he's not above the law, that he's just as accountable as everyone else.
That's a powerful idea. This agreement between the leader and the people, that we're all responsible for each other. Makes you think about our leaders today.
Absolutely. The book of Samuel is saying that leadership isn't about having power over people. It's about using power fairly and recognizing that it comes with responsibilities as well as privileges.
So we've gone from Saul searching for donkeys to becoming king, to leading his people to victory, and finally to understanding what it really means to be a leader. It's been quite a journey. What do you think is the most important thing we can take away from his story?
I think it's the question we started with. What makes a good leader? And where does their authority come from? Saul's story shows us that you can find leadership in unexpected places, that it's often during times of crisis that real leaders step up, and that it takes more than just power to be a good leader. It takes responsibility, humility, and a desire to serve others.
It makes you wonder what the world would be like if we all valued those qualities in our leaders. Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into the book of Samuel. Thank you for joining us. And if this got you thinking, I encourage you to read the book of Samuel yourself. You might be surprised by what you discover. Until next time, keep asking questions and never stop searching for wisdom.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.